Late at night, when the stars shimmered gently above the sea, a little girl named Naya sat by the shore, her toes buried in the cool sand. The wind was soft, and the waves whispered something only she could hear. It wasn't just the sound of the ocean, it was a melody, faint and calling. She closed her eyes. And in that moment, a glowing spiral shell washed up at her feet. It pulsed with soft, pastel light, blue, pink, and lilac, like it was breathing. Naya picked it up with both hands. The moment her fingers touched its surface, the world around her faded. She wasn't sitting on the beach anymore. Now she was floating, light as a feather, beneath the sea, but she didn't need to hold her breath. The water felt like silk. Around her, coral towers swayed like underwater trees, and jellyfish drifted by like glowing umbrellas. Far ahead, in the distance, shimmered a city made of coral and crystal, glowing like a dream. Naya's eyes widened. She clutched the spiral shell to her chest and whispered, "Where am I?" From the distance, a voice answered, not loud, but deep, kind, and full of wonder. "Welcome to the Coral Dream Kingdom." Naya drifted slowly among the pastel coral gardens, her eyes wide with wonder. Tiny fish swirled around her like confetti, and glowing bubbles floated toward the surface like little lanterns. Then, from behind a coral arch, a creature appeared, a golden seahorse, shimmering like sunlight in water. It moved with gentle grace, and around its neck hung a delicate scroll made of pearl. It floated up to her. Naya reached out and untied the scroll. As she unrolled it, glowing letters danced across its surface like ripples. She read softly, "To the one chosen from the surface, we've been waiting. Come to the Pearl Gate as the light shifts south." Before she could ask what it meant, the seahorse turned and glided through a narrow coral path. Naya clutched her spiral shell and followed. The deeper they went, the more magical the world became. Sea flowers opened as she passed. Jellyfish lit her path like paper lamps. A school of transparent fish swam past her with smiles that shimmered. And far ahead, just beyond the shadow of a reef, she saw it. A giant gate shaped like a fan, made of pearl and glowing coral, stood quietly in the water. Behind it, soft light danced like dawn waiting to bloom. Naya's heart skipped, and she swam faster. As Naya swam closer, the pearl gate began to shimmer and hum softly, as if it recognized her presence. The fan-shaped gate opened slowly, not with creaks or groans, but with a sound like distant chimes underwater. Beyond it, a path of glowing sand led deeper into the kingdom. Suddenly, a large figure appeared, gliding from the shadows. It wasn't scary, it moved with elegance, and its face glowed with kindness. It was the gatekeeper of pearls, a graceful rayfish with wings like silk and eyes like moonstones. Pearls were embedded along its fins, glowing softly like lanterns. Naya stopped, floating in silence. The gatekeeper didn't speak with words. Instead, its thoughts entered her mind like soft waves. "You are not just a visitor, child," the voice said. "You are a listener. The kingdom heard your heart before you ever touched the shell." Naya clutched her spiral shell tighter. "But," she whispered, "I don't know what I'm meant to do." The gatekeeper swirled gently around her, leaving trails of light like paint on water. "Follow the path of lullabies. Only those with quiet hearts may walk it." Then, from its fins, a pearl dropped, perfectly round and glowing with a soft, golden light. It floated into Naya's hands, and the gate behind the gatekeeper opened again, revealing a tunnel of sparkling blue that pulsed like a heartbeat. Naya followed the glowing path, the golden pearl cradled in her hands. The tunnel pulsed gently with blue light, and soft currents swirled around her like whispers. Soon, the tunnel opened into a vast underwater meadow. At the center, thousands of shells lay nestled in the sand, each glowing faintly, each shaped slightly different, and each completely still. They weren't just shells. They were sleeping. Floating above the field was a strange instrument, part harp, part jellyfish. Its strings swayed with the ocean current, releasing delicate notes that made the shells tremble slightly in rhythm. Naya drifted closer. A small voice echoed in her mind, like the gatekeeper's voice before. "Play the pearl." She looked down at the orb in her hand. It had tiny golden rings around it, like a music box. Instinctively, she turned the pearl gently in her palm. It began to hum. The moment the pearl's song began, the meadow of shells stirred. Some opened slowly. Others glowed brighter. From within the shells came faint sounds, harmonies, melodies, lullabies, all blending into a quiet symphony of dreams. Naya felt her heart fill with peace. Not excitement. Not fear. Just a deep calm that made her want to cry and smile at the same time. Then she noticed something at the far end of the meadow. One shell, darker than the rest, remained completely still. Not glowing. Not singing. Silent. And Naya felt a sudden chill. Naya slowly approached the dark shell. Everything else in the meadow glowed with song, but this one sat in stillness, like a forgotten shadow. As she drew closer, the soft melodies from the other shells began to fade, replaced by a quiet hum that came from deep inside her golden pearl. She knelt beside the shell. It was larger than the others. Its surface was rough, weathered, and etched with faint patterns, like tears carved in stone. Naya hesitated, then gently reached out her hand and placed the pearl at its center. Nothing happened at first. Then suddenly, the pearl pulsed. The shell trembled, and with a low, aching sound, it opened just a sliver. A swirl of light and memory escaped, a projection of a long-lost song. Images floated through the water, a young mermaid with dark eyes, standing in a coral field, singing alone. Her voice was beautiful, but sad. She sang to the sea, but no one ever sang back. She sang for years, until finally, she fell silent, and curled into a shell of her own making. Naya watched with tears in her eyes. The memory was not hers, but the ache felt real. The shell still didn't open fully. But Naya did not leave. She sat beside it, holding the pearl in silence, letting the echoes of the forgotten song drift around them like falling petals in the water. The memory of the mermaid faded into soft light, and the large dark shell remained cracked open, just slightly more than before. Naya stood up slowly, clutching the glowing pearl. She didn't know why, but she whispered, "I'll help you sing again." As soon as she said it, the sand beneath her feet began to shimmer. The golden path reappeared, winding through the coral fields ahead, leading toward a canyon made of rose-colored reefs. She followed it. Inside the canyon, the world felt warmer. The water sparkled in waves of color, lavender, peach, mint. As she moved deeper, the coral began to hum. One by one, the branches opened like flower petals, revealing faces, tiny coral spirits with voices like bells. They were smiling. And then, they sang. It wasn't words. It was sound made of light and joy and welcome. It wrapped around her like a gentle tide, healing the silence she didn't know she had carried. The coral choir floated upward in spirals, forming a dome of sound and light. And at the very center, a pedestal of crystal rose from the ocean floor. The golden pearl in Naya's hands pulsed once, twice, and then floated on its own, rising above her palms toward the crystal pedestal. The choir grew quiet. The water stilled, and the pearl slowly settled into the heart of the pedestal, locking into place like the final note of a song. The moment the golden pearl settled into the crystal pedestal, the water around Naya began to hum, not loud, but deep, like a heartbeat echoing from the ocean itself. The coral spirits stopped moving. And then, the ground trembled. Far beneath the coral fields, deep in the dark layers of the sea, something ancient stirred. From beyond the coral dome, a soft light emerged, growing brighter and warmer. A current swept past Naya's face, gentle but powerful, like a breath. And slowly, rising from the distant depths, came a figure. It was the mermaid of silence, the one Naya had seen in the memory. But now, she was no longer curled into sorrow. Her eyes were open, glowing softly. Her hair flowed like silk across the water, and in her hands, she carried a shell made of starlight. As she approached the pedestal, the coral spirits parted in a perfect circle, forming a glowing path. The mermaid's voice began as a whisper, barely more than a breath, but it carried through the water like light through glass. It wasn't just a song. It was the first song she had ever received in return. And as her melody grew, the entire kingdom lit up. The coral domes, the sleeping shells, the jellyfish lanterns, all began to glow brighter. The gatekeeper of pearls reappeared in the distance, nodding gently, its fins trailing light. And Naya, floating in the center of it all, smiled. Because she knew. The kingdom had been waiting for her not to save it, but to listen. As the mermaid's song reached its final note, the entire kingdom held its breath. Then, like a sigh of joy, the water shimmered, and a rainbow current spiraled upward from the coral pedestal. It wasn't just light. It felt warm, safe, and full of voices, every shell, every coral spirit, every memory, singing as one. Naya felt herself lifted gently by the current. She looked down one last time at the coral dream kingdom. The mermaid of silence smiled up at her, the crystal pedestal glowing beneath them. The coral spirits waved, their light twinkling like stars in a sea of dusk. And Naya smiled back. She wasn't afraid. As the current carried her higher, the ocean around her softened into cloud-like colors, lavender, peach, golden mist, until everything melted into the quiet silver of dawn. Then, a soft breeze, a bird's cry, and Naya opened her eyes. She was back on the shore, sitting in the sand with the spiral shell still glowing faintly in her lap. The sun was just rising. The sea was calm, but in the wind, she could still hear it. A lullaby from deep beneath the waves. Not just a dream. A promise.